Christmas morning in the mid-90s. You look under the Christmas tree and you see this guy there with your name on it. Oh, what game's it gonna be? It's a feeling I don't think I'll ever get back. And if you're like me, you only ever got new video games on your birthday or on Christmas. So it was a really big deal to find a new video game under the tree. Or for any religious holiday that would have gifts, right? The Super Nintendo lasted from 1991 all the way through 1998. And if the Super Nintendo was your platform of choice for all of those years, here is the game that was probably under your tree each and every single one of those years. Let's see if any of the games on this list match the games that you received in that year. Super Castlevania came out early December of 91, and if you were to receive a Christmas gift for the Super Nintendo in 1991, if you already had the Super Nintendo, hey, maybe you got yours early. Congratulations to you. Castlevania 4 may have been pretty high on that list. Well, there's a lot of great games that came out in 91, including Final Fantasy II, ActRaiser, all these great games like Super Ghouls and Ghosts. We didn't have Zelda, but we had Lagoon, but Super Castlevania 4 was probably pretty high up there because it came out later on. You know, the Super Nintendo came out, you had all these other games, maybe you played a couple of them, maybe you rented a couple of them, but being so close to Christmas, and come on, it's Castlevania, that would be very high on my list as well. For Christmas in 92, did you get Super Star Wars as well? Well, a lot of people did, I think. It came out in November. And 92 was a fantastic year for Super Nintendo, of course. But again, looking at the games that probably came out later in the year, that would be closer to Christmas time. Super Star Wars, new game, I liked it. I thought it was a great game. And around this time, there seemed to have been kind of a resurgence for Star Wars. Like, was it back in theaters for a little bit? Maybe there was a new release of VHS that came out or something. I thought the game was just fine. I liked it quite a bit. I'm just fingers crossed that you got Super Star Wars instead of Spider-Man and the X-Men in Arcade's Revenge, which came out at the same time. December of 93, we saw Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Tournament Fighters. Well, it was during a great time when, since Street Fighter II was so popular, Mortal Kombat was doing great. Well, they had all of these great 2D fighting games, and of course, when you combine 2D fighting with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, you're bound to have a great time. Is it the best fighting game for the Super Nintendo? You know, if I had to rank all the fighting games, that might be a video in the future. This one may rank 5th or 6th, I don't know. Not the highest on the list, but I still had a lot of fun with this game. Great as a 1-player, even better as a 2-player, like any fighting game would be, or could be, or should be. It was even around this time, 93, when like the hype, the mega hype of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was already dying down. Not about to die down, it was already on the downslope. Like when this came out, I was just like, they're still doing Turtle stuff, okay. I'm down for it. You know, it wasn't as popular as it once was, but still very welcoming. They had 3 different fighting Turtles games, one for NES, one for Genesis, one for Super Nintendo. To me, the Super Nintendo was the best choice. Oh man, if Christmas 94 wasn't Donkey Kong Country, I don't know what other game could have been. Donkey Kong Country was mega hyped up. It was the return of Donkey Kong. Donkey Kong's back, doing its own thing. You didn't even have to tell me the game was made by Rare. I wouldn't have known, I wouldn't have cared. I was like, oh my god, Nintendo just made a new Donkey Kong Country game. Because I thought, you know, if the company that produces it was the company that made it, then sure. Nintendo's bringing back Donkey Kong and giving him a whole new family, a whole new characters, a whole new look. They're starting to do really cool things with graphics during this time as well. It was on, I mean, they literally sent out VHS tapes telling you how awesome this game was. How much money did that cost them? A lot, probably. But they knew they were going to see their ROI because everybody had Donkey Kong Country. I loved it. Is it the best platformer of all time? I don't think so, but it sure was a lot of fun. And there were some great games that came out in 94 as well, but when it came to closer to Christmas time, where it would be about that time where you say, well, you know, Christmas is coming up. What do you want for, what games do you want for Christmas or whatever? I'm sure Donkey Kong Country very high on a lot of people's lists. 1995, we didn't see the giant influx of Super Nintendo games released as we had the last couple of years. Still a lot of great games that came out in 95 though. And although the safe bet would have been to grab Donkey Kong Country 2, which I'm sure they released by Christmas on purpose, just a little bit before that, a couple months before that, they released Super Mario World 2 Yoshi's Island. Since Super Mario World was such a hit, hey, why not make the sequel to it, but have it be completely different? You play as Yoshi, and you have to protect baby Mario. To me, this didn't even have to be a Super Mario World game. I barely even recognize, and I have to recognize it because it is, but I never saw this game as a Super Mario World game. I saw it as a Yoshi game, and it's a great game. I love this game. I do. But Super Mario World 2, it's Yoshi's Island. It came out in October, which was, I think, late enough. So when Christmas lists started being populated, you go through the October thing, and then after Halloween, they're like, okay, what do you want for Christmas? I think that was still fresh in a lot of people's minds to say, you know what, Mario World 2, let's give it a shot. With the Nintendo 64 coming out in September of '96, a lot of efforts started moving that direction, but Super Nintendo was still doing very well at the time. Yeah, maybe not as well as they once was, but still coming out with some great games, including Donkey Kong Country 3. There are people on this planet, I promise, who received Donkey Kong Country in '94, then Donkey Kong Country 2 in '95, and then Donkey Kong Country 3 in '96. 3 Christmases in a row. It wouldn't be the worst thing ever. Donkey Kong Country 3, it's a pretty fun one. They removed Donkey Kong from it. So it's like you don't even get to play as Donkey Kong or even Diddy Kong. It was almost like they used the first one to say, hey, it's Donkey Kong and his friends. And then later on, there's like, okay, well now that you know the friends, you enjoy with the friends, and then we'll just remove Donkey Kong from the situation. Great game in and of itself. Only a few games that came out around this, November, December of '96 that would be up on that list high enough to be like valued as a Christmas gift and not just like a rental. But probably Donkey Kong Country 3. That's what I would pick. Only 10 games total were released for the Super Nintendo in 1997. That's January through February. Kirby's Dream Land 3 would probably be the best choice for the Super Nintendo if you're still getting Super Nintendo games in 1997. 10 games total were released on the Super Nintendo in 1997. And that's going from January all the way through the end of December. Don't even have to say January. That's from May all the way through the end of December. According to the Nintendo Fandom Wiki, 0 games were released on the Super Nintendo from January all the way until May. And with Kirby's Dream Land 3 coming out November 27th, 1997, it would be the best obvious choice. And what a great game. I'm sorry it was released so late in the life cycle of the Nintendo 64. It's such a great game. Again, a year into Nintendo 64, I was like, I still have a Super Nintendo. I did want to rent it at least, so it was still there. 1998, literally 2 games were released, and Frogger was one of them. Yes, Frogger was one of them. That face says it all. It's Frogger, one of my favorite games of all time. Love me some Frogger. Props to them for releasing a Frogger game so late. There was a bunch of Frogger games that were released right around this time too, on multiple consoles, on multiple platforms. And although this game could have just been made in Macromedia Flash for its time in 1998, yeah, with only 2 games that were released. There was Frogger, and then there was also NBA Live 98. So, take your pick. Any of those hit home for you? Opening them up on Christmas Day or something like that? Would have been cool. I'm also going to check out the Christmas games from NES, Genesis, and more. Make sure you're subscribed. Those videos are coming up real soon. As of posting this, Christmas is coming up right around the corner, so we got to get some great ideas, right? And even today, a lot of the games on this list still wouldn't be a bad Christmas gift, I promise.